You're listening to Mountain Sunlight on WEHC 90.7, your college and community station on the campus of Emory and Henry College. I'm your host, Debra McCown, and today I'm speaking with Dwayne McIntyre, the farm manager for Rocky Cattle Company and a local gardening expert who sells regularly at the Abingdon Farmers Market. He and his wife Stacy are expecting their 5th child this fall. I came here to Dwayne's farm in Russell County to talk to him about food, diet, and health. These days, healthy eating is a popular topic, though a lot of the diets out there are geared toward weight loss or meeting some other health metric. This is not one of them. The approach that Dwayne and his family take is a look at the whole picture, the idea of good food as preventive medicine. In a lifestyle that began as kind of a back-to-the-land experiment, the McIntyres take their dietary advice from a single source, the Bible. They read Old Testament food law with the idea that there's something to it, that the advice of the Hebrew God to his people on what to eat was not just a test of religious faith. Rather, it was reflective of what their digestive systems were designed to handle best. Dwayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Deborah. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you were a regular guy in mainstream society, maybe even a bit of a troubled youth. Now you are happily married with a beautiful family and largely living off the land. What prompted you to make this dramatic lifestyle change, and how did you manage to pull it off?
Well, Deborah, I just started reading the Bible and seeing a lot of things that are just not in practice in our modern society. And I wanted to conform to the image of Christ. Christ followed all these precepts 100% throughout his life, and I just found that I wanted to do everything I could to make my life conform the best that it can to that premise. How did I manage to pull it off? Well, I can't answer that question. I don't know how that all worked itself out. You know, I think that we just kind of sit here and assume that it's just a repercussion or a blessing, if you will, for the lifestyle change that we pushed hard for, and it's a natural blessing, I guess.
So what is life like at the McIntyre farm?
Well, it's busy, long hours, long days. This kind of lifestyle makes for a good day of rest once a week, that's for sure. I mean, our life is really just what we do. We don't have much of a life outside of this farm. You know, we're not upset about that at all.
So what goes on out here in a typical day?
We get up and we milk cows, we tend to our garden, we raise all of our own food, and basically we just stay contained into what we're doing here and just try to do the best we can with what knowledge we have.
So tell me about the process that it's taken over the last few years to get from that initial decision to take on this lifestyle to where you are now.
We kind of stumbled upon this on happenstance. We were living up in Pennsylvania. We just moved in with the Amish when we decided we want to become agricultural. We just happened to meet the right Amish family who knew the right people down here in Southwest Virginia, and the gentleman I work for needed somebody to run his farm, and my name got thrown in the mix. I mean, nothing I did at all, and then he came, interviewed me, and within a month we were Virginians.
So for your own effort to go from coming here kind of fresh to the point where you are raising all your own food, and now you're getting into the cheese making business and all these other kind of random things that you're doing. I mean, I'm sure you had a lot of learning to do, or did you learn all that from the Amish in PA?
Oh man, yeah, well, early on, I'll be honest, we did sit there and peek out of our windows as the Amish were going out in their gardens to plant, and then when we saw them out in their gardens, we'd run over and say, "What are you doing?" And they would say, "Oh, we're planting our peas and potatoes," and then we'd run back to our house real quick and plant our peas and potatoes. But other than that, there wasn't too much else we got from the Amish. You know, basically this is a lot of study, a lot of book reading, and then of course, you know, taking this job here at Rocky Cattle Company, it's a lot of just hands-on experience, trial and error, just going with the flow and taking it as it comes.
So you chose the name Goshen Homestead for your family's farm. What does this name mean?
Well, Goshen, as a lot of people might know, is the place that the Israelite people from the Bible were given to live at in Egypt when they first entered Egypt. It's described as a very beautiful valley and fruitful valley, and we just kind of see it as America today in comparison, and we kind of just look at this venture as our little place within somebody else's place.
So when we talk about the things written in the Old Testament of the Bible about food, long before Jesus walked on the earth, how old are we talking here? I mean, this has got to be some pretty ancient stuff.
Well, it's definitely very, very old stuff. The food laws specifically, what you're asking about, that was written down with Moses presumably about 3,500 years ago. If we go back 1,500 years before that, we can see that in the time of Noah, in Genesis chapter 6 and 7, that Noah also adhered to the very same food laws that Moses writ down, which gives that about a approximate number of 5,000 years.
So in a nutshell, what does all of it say? What are the general broad principles that the human diet should be based on?
A lot of the food law and a lot of the agricultural laws that you find in the Bible basically maintain a purity, raw food type of organic farming practice and have thrived civilizations over the millennia.
So what part of the Bible is this stuff in that you follow? What are some key passages that our listeners might want to look up? And can you share a few verses with us that you base a lot of this on?
A lot of this stuff is found in the Old Testament. Specific chapters are Leviticus 11, Deuteronomy chapter 14. Those two chapters have full exhaustive lists of the food laws, the unclean meats and the clean meats.
So based on these ancient rules, what are we supposed to eat and what are we specifically not supposed to eat?
Animals that divide the hoof, chew the cud, cow, deer, goat, sheep, all those animals tend to be just herbivores. They eat nothing but pure grass. They have very complex digestive systems which allow the food they eat to be purified. All fish with fins and scales. Birds are a little more complicated. There's a lot of different categories there, but turkeys and chickens and their eggs and the like are all good food. Now as unclean food, anything with paws is forbidden. And interestingly enough, that would include a lot of your critters, animals that run around, that bear even. And so anything else in the ocean that doesn't have fins and scales, your sharks, all your shellfish, the shrimp, the crabs, the clams, the oysters, a lot of this stuff, which is really just bottom feeders, eat the waste of the ocean. They're kind of the filters.
So how many people are there? I mean, how big of a movement is this, or how many people are there out there who really follow this Old Testament food law?
There's a huge base of Christians out there who are reading their Bibles and coming to this knowledge. They're just scattered everywhere. To me, I just kind of see an awakening happening slowly but surely. People just being more diligent about reading their Bibles and discovering that some of this stuff might have a more valid place in a Christian life than once believed.
So what does this mean in terms of modern food? I mean, when something comes in a package at the store, how can you even tell whether it's clean or unclean?
Basically, if you're venturing into a healthy lifestyle, regardless of whatever direction you take, some of that packaged stuff hopefully stays on the shelf while you're shopping in the supermarket anyway.
So I know that you and Stacy produce most of your own food here on the farm, and both of you have told me that you became farmers, one reason being so that you can have clean, healthy food. So why is food and what you eat so important as to drive your entire lifestyle?
This industrial food movement that has taken over this country has really devastating effects on the health and well-being of society. As I ventured into this, it wasn't as cool as it is now to worry about what you're eating and shop organic and drink raw milk or eat raw foods. I just had a really scary revelation about the future for my children. This is a knowledge that we're losing in this country. My drive is all fueled by this overwhelming necessity to, first off, harvest this knowledge for ourselves and pass it down to our children.
So one big exception, of course, is pork, which in the South especially is almost universal. Barbecue, bacon, sausage, and gravy. I mean, if you go into a restaurant, just about everything on the menu is going to have some kind of pork product in it somewhere. So how did a food that's supposed to be so unhealthy for us, that's forbidden in the Bible, how did that come to be in everything?
Interestingly enough, pork, or as the Bible calls it, swine, is actually an abomination to eat. Yeah, how did it come to be that we love pork? Well, we love our taste buds and our tongues, and we love physical gratification. That would be my first guess. My second guess is money. In the New Testament, there's a stark comparison between serving God and serving money, and I just think money won. It's just really cheap to put pork in everything. People love it, and there's a big profit margin to pork.
So from a strictly scientific perspective, what is it about pork that makes it bad for you? I mean, what makes a pig fundamentally different from all of these other animals, a cow, a sheep, a goat? Why is pork considered an abomination while these other animals are perfectly fine to eat?
Swine, they are the garbage dumps of all the environments that they live in. They eat all the garbage. They eat dead animals. They eat each other. They eat their own babies. They eat their own fecal matter. They just are disgusting creatures. Pork meat has a very strong tendency to harbor lots of bacteria. They were just not meant for food. Our domestication of them has definitely tamed their diet a lot and now only eat grain. By nature, they're not meant to be doing that. They are carrion feeders. They are garbage cleaners. They are designed to absorb the toxins of all the nasty stuff that they eat. Scientifically, the toxins in the fat of pigs are super concentrated because the animal does not perspire. And sweating, as we all know, is a way for our bodies and other creatures' bodies to release the toxins and to cleanse oneself of pollution. Pigs just don't do that, so they just store all that stuff in the fat, and then we kill it, cut it up, and put all that nasty stuff in our body. It's just not meant to be that way. I think that more study of it all, you find a lot more just unfolds about pigs. And there's all these big social campaigns to condition you that it's the other white meat. But, I'll tell you, I'm just not convinced.
So you did mention earlier this concept of hybridity. Of course, the idea of mixing different plants to produce a hybrid. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that. What do you think is meant when the Bible addresses that issue? And also, is there a connection between the use of hybrid grains and, any modern health ailments?
The discussion of hybridity is derived out of Leviticus 19:19, thou shalt not mingle the seed of the plants or the animals. And this is all farm product. We should not be hybridizing our food supply. And I'm even willing to stretch it as far as to say that this might even include genetically modified seeds, because it's still a mingling of the seeds. And that's a realm that we're not even really gotten into yet, but we're heading there full steam ahead. One of the byproducts of hybridity is a very deficient, nutritious vegetable. Most hybrid vegetables do not have the kind of compact nutritional value that their normal counterparts carry.
So you've told us about how healthy we can be if we follow this type of diet. But just putting religion aside for a moment, what are the health consequences to people here in America if we continue to eat all of these unclean foods at the level that we do now?
Well, I think the health consequences are the health consequences that are happening now. I think that we're into some serious trouble. I think that our food morality is really bad. You can look around at the obesity within the public. You can look at the unhealthiness, the degenerate diseases. I mean, people, when I was a kid, Debra, old people were old, for one. In their 90s, 80s, late 80s, early 90s, maybe, they were all cracking on the whip to get to 100. And they were dying of old age in their sleep. I just don't remember, seeing, the tragic, horrific stories of how the neighbor's father at age 60 died of the most horrific disease in the book. And I mean, that is just so commonplace nowadays. And I think that people have kind of been conditioned to just accept that this is the way things are. I don't think it's the way things are supposed to be. I think that disease and degeneration is just running rampant in this society. And I do think that it's because of our moral food choices that we make. So I think that it's naturally already happening.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add to wrap up?
Anybody out there, I mean, if any of this is interesting to anybody, then I definitely suggest pick up your Bibles and just read it. Have no preconceived notions, have no ideas of what it's supposed to say, and just let it say what it says. And I think that, there's a lot of answers and a lot of good wisdom that has been passed down for over 5,000 years for us to live by and to flourish under. I think that health is a very important thing, and I'm very much under the persuasion that it is a moral issue, just like murder or stealing or any of those other kinds of issues. This is a real moral issue. Obesity is running rampant in this country. Disease is at levels unseen by history. Something's got to give. I mean, we are doing something very, very wrong. Maybe it's just time to try something new, or in my case, something really old. It's just a matter of faith for us, and it's our Christian walk here that brings us to this point. But I don't see too many other options other than more medicine, more medical engineering and more bioengineering to make our food more or less poisonous to us. If anything, people can walk away from this conversation is that they would just walk away just recognizing that there's definitely a morality to food.